So on the heels of Thursday night football where the Bengals upset the Steelers, Pittsburgh drops to 4-2. It means the updated standings has the Chargers in second behind the first place Colts. It's a game you can watch on CBS in the late window where LA is a 1.5 favorite in Inglewood with Justin Herbert and Daniel Jones, the quarterback matchup. Chargers will be debuting all new gold Charger Power uniforms this week against the Colts. Already considered the gold standard in uniforms already. Bolts add another wrinkle into the mix on Sunday. The team's also unveiling new field designs at SoFi Stadium over the next 2 weeks that will have an old school feel. Time now for this segment presented by Fresh Pet, healthy food, fresh from the fridge and fresh into your living room and into your computer. Ryan Wilson joining us here on HQ. Ryan, you are a fashion fellow. You love the fashion. You're very keen on some of these things. So what do we think about these power jerseys for the Bolts this week?
Hey, Tommy T, good to see you. I'm also old, and I can remember back when Dan Fouts was throwing passes to tight end Kellen Winslow, OG Kellen Winslow. And I don't hate these. They require a moment of reflection and perhaps some deep introspection, but I am coming around on them, and you talked about it. You have to give the Chargers the benefit of the doubt because they crush it in each and every uniform iteration that they come out with. The powder blues, everyone knows and loves the powder blues. There's not anyone on planet Earth that does not like that color combination. I'm also partial to the navy alternates that they've worn earlier this year. That was a throwback to LDT and Drew Brees and even Doug Flutie back in the early aughts. But I'm willing to give this the benefit of the doubt. And I think when you see Justin Herbert sizzling passes in the unis, you'll come around on it. The other thing is it took a little time for those all greens, those action greens that the Seahawks wore a few years ago. But I sort of like those as well. So I'm all in on the monochrome. And Tommy, you're a fashion fit guy yourself. I would imagine you're okay with these.
I'm okay, but the consensus is true. It's like the worst of the best because they always have the good jerseys. And I think people, you mentioned the monochrome, just the color rush vibes. People still have some PTSD over some of those Thursday night games when the all green, all blue, in this case, all highlighter yellow. But you mentioned those throwbacks because that's what they're going to be doing in back-to-back weeks on Thursday night football against the Vikings, too. Again, more of that San Diego Chargers feel, and I wonder if they can ever bring back some of those music. As you know, Ryan, San Diego Superchargers.
Superchargers.
Right? Yeah, it's a great melody. And that's what you're going to see in SoFi the next 2 weeks. All right, let's actually get to the team itself. Chargers coming off that dramatic win over the Dolphins. Again, they had sort of a seesaw up and down start to the season, 3-0 the division, then 0-2 against the Giants and Commanders, and that nail-biting win. Where are you at right now when it comes to the Chargers? Are they anywhere near the top two, which they are standings right now, Ryan?
Yeah, the history of the Chargers, their inertia typically tells you they're going to charger it up at some point, and they've shown fits and starts of trying to do that. But I think to keep this astronomical, the gravitational pull of Jim Harbaugh has kept them from going into that black hole. I'm really going down this rabbit hole here with the astronomy talk. I think Jim Harbaugh, has a lot to do with keeping them from doing what they've done historically as the season progresses. And you talk about games they've lost to teams they shouldn't have lost, most notably the Jackson Darts and the New York Giants. But I think this team is turning a corner. And there's a reason they moved on from Brandon Staley. The playoff loss to the Jaguars is fresh in everyone's mind still years later. And I think Jim Harbaugh is the person to get the most out of these players. Justin Herbert is playing at an incredibly high level. And they're playing some pretty decent football. And look, that win against Miami wasn't great, but the way it ended certainly made you feel good about your franchise quarterback and their ability to battle when he broke out of that tackle from Jalen Phillips, hit Ladd McConkey down the field to set up the game winner. But I think you have to feel good about the way this offense is playing, even without their two best running backs, even with their two best offensive tackles out, one out for the season. And the defense is doing a lot of the heavy lifting without Khalil Mack, who they will get back hopefully very soon. So I feel cautiously optimistic that we're over the typical Chargers point that we see at this stage of the process for the Chargers, but I'm not going to call them the 2007 Patriots just yet, Tommy.
Okay, you need to see a little bit more, and you mentioned all the injuries. I think there was some nice things about Joe Alt this week, trending back in the right direction. Looks like Kimani Vidal's the guy after Omari and Hampton's on IR and Najee Harris out for the season. So Justin Herbert 25-1 to win MVP, same as Daniel Jones. So same thing with you. Have we seen enough from Indiana Jones, R-Dub? Are you buying into what he's doing right now with this 5-1 team?
Lock, stock, and barrel, Tommy. I'm all in Indiana Jones. By the way, Danny Dimes is a really good nickname. I think Indiana Jones is the grand slam of a nickname, especially for someone that we have thrown on the scrap heap multiple times during his start for the Giants. And you might say, why is Daniel Jones playing so well? Well, he's on a better football team, number one. I think Shane Steichen has done the most to get the best out of him. Better offensive line play, and that's not a huge stretch when you saw how things went every single year for the Giants. The receivers are astronomically better, and that's no slight to Malik Neighbors, but that's all that Daniel Jones had last year was Malik Neighbors, and prior to that, it was Saquon Barkley essentially. Improved. He's a lot better under pressure, Tommy, than he ever was in New York, and maybe that's a function of growth as an NFL quarterback. Maybe he's more comfortable in this system, but it feels like they're putting him in position to have success, and he does not have to do it all. He is just a game manager back there, and I mean that in the most positive sense. So I think it can be sustained as long as the defense continues to play well. And, oh, by the way, Tyler Warren might end up being Brock Bowers 2.0. He has been so effective over the first month and a half of the season for Indianapolis.
Colts off to their best 6-game start since 2009. They haven't made the playoffs since 2020 when Frank Reich was the head coach. Phillip Rivers was the quarterback. So it'll be interesting to see. It looks like you think they'll be able to sustain it here. But as we take a look at the schedule, Ryan, it's basically Indianapolis and Jacksonville right now for the division. Do you believe two teams will make the postseason, and are you bullish on Indy being the division winner when it's all said and done?
Yeah, I am bullish on Indy, Tommy, in part because if you're asking me straight up who's a better football team, Indianapolis or Jacksonville, I'm leaning towards Indy. We'll still see the occasional hiccups from Jacksonville. I love what Liam Cohen and James Gladstone have done there. Trevor is playing better at quarterback. You look at the schedule, there's a lot of tough games coming up. They have to play at Pitt, at KC coming out of their bye in Week 12. And look, that game's later in November. We'll have a real idea of what the AFC looks like at that point, because Kansas City at 3-3 now should be back on their feet. So that Week 12 game is the one I have circled to figure out exactly what these lanes look like for all these AFC teams. It is hysterical to me that the Ravens are still on their plus 1,000 to win the AFC Championship of 1-5, but that's the staying power that they have when they're healthy. But the Colts at plus 750, Tommy, I don't hate it, because everything they've done thus far is sustainable as long as people stay healthy. And I would imagine Shane Steichen is absolutely ecstatic to have gotten Daniel Jones because of how inconsistent Anthony Richardson was when he was in the lineup.
Yeah, they were so close, knocking on the door. Even Gardner Minshew a few seasons ago, they were really close to getting to the postseason, and they could very well do that with Daniel Jones. Getting back to the game, Ryan, it's about a coin flip game. Who do you like?
I like the Colts, and I think we've talked about the Chargers and why they feel like a better version of themselves in recent years, and most recently the last month and a half. But the injuries concern me, and I do want to see what happens with that run game. They've struggled to run the ball inside when everyone's healthy. The Colts are really good at stopping the run on the inside. Maybe there's a path in terms of outside running for the Chargers to get this thing going, but they don't have much in the way of pass rush outside of Tuli Pelotu, and the Colts have done a really good job of handling the pass rush. So I'm going to go with Indianapolis. I think they win this football game and extend their lead as the best team in the AFC, Tommy.
Okay, Ryan Wilson joining us here on a Friday. Appreciate you, R-Dub, as we take a look at the CBS lineup on this NFL Sunday. 3 games in the early window, doubleheader at 4 or 5 Eastern, including Colts and Chargers. That is the Iron Eagle, J.J. Watt, Evan Washburn game.